You ever look at a man and realize you never really knew him at all? I'm not talking about the little surprises, like finding out he can't cook or that he snores louder than a freight train. I mean the kind of secret that sits in the walls of your house, growing roots, waiting for the day it finally bursts through the floorboards and changes everything. That's what happened to me. I was married to Henry Carter for 23 years. 23 years of Sunday dinners, Christmas mornings, and anniversaries that sometimes felt more like obligations than celebrations. We had our ups and downs, like any couple. But I thought I knew the man I shared my bed with. I thought I knew the father of my children, the man who prayed with me at night, who held my hand at funerals and weddings and every hard moment in between. But I didn't. Not really. Because for 18 of those years, Henry was living a second life, a second family, a second set of promises, of birthdays, of secrets. And I didn't have a clue. Not until the day the truth came knocking, loud, insistent, and impossible to ignore. It started with a letter. Not an email, not a text, but a real letter, handwritten, with my name on the front in a script I didn't recognize. I found it in the mailbox on a Tuesday morning, tucked between bills and junk mail. I almost threw it away, but something about the way my name was written made me pause. I opened it at the kitchen table, sunlight streaming through the window, the house quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. Dear Mrs. Carter, I hope this letter finds you well. I know this may come as a shock, but I believe you deserve to know the truth. My name is Angela. I have a son, David, who is 18 years old. His father is Henry Carter, your husband. I read the words once, twice, 3 times, my mind refusing to make sense of them. Henry? My Henry? No, it couldn't be. But the letter went on. I am not writing to cause trouble. I am writing because David deserves to know his father. He deserves to know his family. I have kept this secret for too long, and I can't do it anymore. I am sorry for any pain this causes you, but you deserve the truth. I sat there, the letter trembling in my hands, my heart pounding so loud I thought it might burst. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to tear the letter into 1,000 pieces and pretend I'd never seen it. But I couldn't, because deep down I knew. I knew there had always been something Henry wasn't telling me. The late nights, the business trips that didn't add up, the way he'd go quiet when certain names came up in conversation. I'd ignored it, told myself I was being paranoid, that every marriage has its secrets. But not like this. Not a whole other family. Not a son. I waited for Henry to come home that night. I didn't say a word when he walked through the door, kissed my cheek, asked what was for dinner. I watched him, really watched him, for the first time in years. The way he moved, the way he smiled, the way he avoided my eyes. After dinner, when the dishes were done and the house was quiet, I handed him the letter. He read it, his face going pale, his hands shaking. He didn't deny it, didn't even try. He just sat down at the table, head in his hands, and started to cry. I'd never seen him cry before. Not like that, not with his whole body, like the truth was finally too heavy to carry. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to hit him, to throw something, to make him feel even a fraction of the pain I was feeling. But I didn't. I just sat there, silent, letting the truth settle between us like dust. "How long?" I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. He looked up, eyes red and swollen. 18 years, he said, since before David was born. I closed my eyes, tried to breathe. "Why?" I asked. "Why would you do this?" He shook his head, tears streaming down his face. "I don't know. I was stupid. I was scared. I didn't want to lose you. I didn't want to lose him. I thought I could keep it separate. I thought I could be 2 people. I laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "You can't be 2 people, Henry. You can barely be 1. He flinched, but I didn't care. I was done caring. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to Henry sob quietly in the next room. I thought about all the years I'd spent building a life with him. All the sacrifices, all the compromises, all the times I'd put his needs before my own. I thought about our children, our real children, the ones who bore my name, who called me Mama, who trusted me to keep them safe. And I thought about David, a boy I'd never met, a boy who had grown up without a father, or at least without the father he deserved. I wondered what he looked like. If he had Henry's eyes, his smile, his laugh. I wondered if he hated me, if he blamed me for the life he'd been given. I wondered if Angela was telling the truth, or if this was some cruel joke. But deep down, I knew. I knew it was real, because the truth has a way of making itself known, no matter how hard you try to hide it. The next morning, I called Angela. Her voice was soft, hesitant. "Mrs. Carter?" "Yes, this is Ora Mae." There was a long pause. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't know what else to do." I took a deep breath, tried to steady my voice. "Tell me everything," I said. And she did. She told me about the affair, about the promises Henry had made, about the years she'd spent waiting for him to choose her, to choose David. She told me about the birthdays missed, the holidays spent alone, the questions David had started asking as he got older. She told me about the pain, the anger, the regret. And I listened. I listened to every word, every tear, every confession. Because I needed to know. I needed to understand. I needed to decide what to do next. When we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table, the letter in one hand, the phone in the other. I knew what I had to do. I had to tell my children. I had to tell them the truth. Even if it broke them. Even if it broke me. Because secrets like this don't stay buried. And the only way to heal is to let the truth out, no matter how much it hurts. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time after that call. The house so quiet I could hear the clock ticking in the hallway. I thought about all the ways I could break the news to my children. I thought about the words I'd use, the order I'd say them in, the way I'd try to soften the blow. But the truth is, there's no gentle way to tell your children their father has been living a double life for nearly 2 decades. I called Denise first. She was always the strong one, the one who could take bad news and turn it into a plan. She answered on the second ring, her voice bright and busy. "Hey, Mama, what's up?" I swallowed, tried to keep my voice steady. "Baby, I need you to come by the house. There's something we need to talk about. It's important." She heard it in my voice. The brightness faded. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. I called Reggie next. He was slower to answer, always had been. When he finally picked up, I repeated the same words. "Come home, baby. I need you here." He didn't ask questions, just said, "I'm on my way." Ruth was last. She was always the most sensitive, the one who took everything to heart. I almost didn't call her, but I knew she'd never forgive me if I left her out. She answered on the first ring, her voice already trembling. "What's wrong, Ora Mae?" "Just come home, Ruth, please." They arrived within the hour, one by one, each carrying their own version of worry. Denise came in first, her face set, her eyes scanning mine for clues. Reggie followed, hands in his pockets, shoulders hunched. Ruth came last, her eyes already red, her hands shaking. We sat in the living room, the 4 of us, the air thick with unspoken questions. I took a deep breath, looked at each of them in turn. "I need to tell you something," I said. "Something that's going to hurt, but you deserve the truth." They waited, silent, bracing themselves. I handed Denise the letter. She read it, her eyes widening, her mouth falling open. She passed it to Reggie, who read it twice before handing it to Ruth. When Ruth finished, she looked at me, tears streaming down her face. "Mama, is this real?" I nodded, my own eyes filling with tears. "It's real, baby. I wish it wasn't, but it is." Denise was the first to speak. "How long have you known?" I swallowed. "Since yesterday. I confronted your father last night. He admitted everything." Reggie shook his head, disbelief etched on his face. 18 years? How could he keep this from us for 18 years? I shook my head. "I don't know, baby. I really don't." Ruth started to cry, her sobs quiet but deep. Denise put an arm around her, but her own face was hard, angry. "What are we going to do?" she asked. I took a deep breath. "We're going to tell the truth. We're going to face this together, and we're going to decide what happens next as a family." They nodded, each of them processing the news in their own way. The days that followed were a blur of phone calls, tears, and long, painful conversations. Henry tried to explain, tried to apologize, but none of us wanted to hear it. The damage was done. Denise was furious. She wanted to confront Angela, to demand answers, to make sense of the mess Henry had made. Reggie was quiet, withdrawn. He spent hours walking the neighborhood, trying to process the betrayal. Ruth was inconsolable. She blamed herself, blamed me, blamed Henry, blamed the world. I tried to hold us together, but I was breaking too. One night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the letter from Angela. I thought about David, about the life he'd lived without knowing his siblings, without knowing me. I thought about Angela, about the years she'd spent waiting for Henry to choose her, to choose their son. I thought about Henry, about the man I thought I knew, about the man he really was. And I made a decision. I was going to write to David. I was going to tell him the truth. Not just about Henry, but about me, about our family, about the life he'd been denied. The next morning, I sat down with a pen and paper and began to write. Dear David, I don't know if you know who I am. My name is Ora Mae Carter. I was married to your father for 23 years. I have 3 children, Denise, Reggie, and Ruth. I am writing to you because I believe you deserve to know the truth. You deserve to know your family. You deserve to know that you are not alone. I told him everything. About Henry, about the affair, about the years of secrets and lies. I told him about Denise, about Reggie, about Ruth. I told him about our family, about the love we shared, about the pain we'd endured. I told him I was sorry. I told him I hoped he would find it in his heart to forgive us, to forgive Henry, to forgive himself. I mailed the letter that afternoon, my hands shaking as I dropped it in the mailbox. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew I had done the right thing. A week later, I got a letter in return. Dear Mrs. Carter, thank you for your letter. I appreciate your honesty. I have always wondered about my father, about the family he left behind. I have always wanted to know the truth. I don't blame you. I don't blame your children. I just want to understand. I just want to know where I come from. Sincerely, David. I cried when I read his words, not because they hurt, but because they healed. For the first time since the truth came out, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe we could build something new. Maybe we could find a way forward. I called Denise, told her about the letter. She was hesitant, but agreed to write to David as well. Reggie took longer, but eventually he reached out too. Ruth was the last. She wrote a short note, but it was enough. We started exchanging letters, slowly building a bridge across the years of secrets and lies. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks, misunderstandings, moments of anger and pain, but we kept trying, because that's what family does. We keep trying even when it hurts. The first time David called, I almost didn't answer. The number was unfamiliar, and my heart was pounding so hard I thought I might faint. But something in me said, "Pick up, Ora Mae. This is the moment you've been waiting for." I pressed the phone to my ear, my voice trembling. "Hello?" A pause. Then a young man's voice, careful and polite. "Mrs. Carter, this is David. I got your letter." I closed my eyes, let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "David, thank you for calling." He was quiet, but I could hear the emotion in his voice. "I just wanted to say thank you for telling me the truth, for reaching out." We talked for nearly an hour. He told me about his life, his mother, his school, his dreams. He asked about Denise, Reggie, and Ruth. He wanted to know what they were like, what I was like, what Henry was like before the secrets. I answered every question as honestly as I could. I didn't sugarcoat Henry's mistakes, but I didn't demonize him either. I told David about the good times, the laughter, the love that once filled our home. He listened, sometimes laughing, sometimes going quiet. I could tell he was trying to piece together a puzzle that had always been missing a few pieces. Before we hung up, he said, "I'd like to meet you, all of you, if that's okay." I swallowed, my throat tight. "Of course, baby. Your family. You always have been, even if you didn't know it." We set a date for the following month. I called Denise, Reggie, and Ruth, told them the plan. They were nervous, but agreed. The day David came to visit, the house was buzzing with nerves. Denise baked a cake, Reggie cleaned the porch, Ruth set the table with the good dishes. We all wanted to make a good impression, to show David that he belonged. When he arrived, I saw Henry in him immediately, the way he walked, the way he smiled, the way he looked at the world with a mix of hope and caution. He hugged me first, holding on a little longer than necessary. Then he hugged Denise, Reggie, and Ruth, each one a little awkward, a little unsure. We sat in the living room, talking, laughing, sharing stories. David asked questions, listened intently, sometimes taking notes in a small notebook he carried. At dinner, he raised his glass. To family, he said, his voice steady. To truth, to new beginnings. We all clinked glasses, the sound ringing through the house like a promise. After dinner, David and I sat on the porch, watching the sunset. He was quiet for a long time, then said, I always wondered what it would be like to have siblings, to have a family. I put my arm around him. You have one now, baby. It may not be perfect, but it's yours. He smiled, tears in his eyes. Thank you, Mrs. Carter, for everything. I squeezed his hand. Call me Ora Mae, or Mama if you want. He laughed, wiping his eyes. Maybe one day. We sat in silence, the kind that feels full, not empty. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of emotions. Denise and David bonded over their love of books. Reggie took him fishing. Ruth taught him how to bake Mama's famous cornbread. Henry tried to reach out, but David kept his distance. He wasn't ready to forgive, not yet. Maybe not ever. I understood. Forgiveness is a journey, not a destination. One evening, as I was cleaning up after dinner, Denise pulled me aside. Ma, do you ever regret telling the truth? I thought about it for a moment. No, baby. The truth hurts, but lies destroy. I'd rather face the pain and heal than live in a house built on secrets. She nodded, hugging me tight. I'm proud of you, Ma. I'm proud of us. I smiled, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. But not everyone was happy. Word got out in the community. Some people whispered, some judged, some offered sympathy. A few old friends stopped calling. Some church folks looked at me different. But I held my head high. I knew I'd done the right thing. And I knew that in time, the people who mattered would see that too. One night, as I sat on the porch, David joined me. Do you think it'll ever feel normal? He asked. I smiled, looking up at the stars. Normal is just a word, baby. What matters is that we're together, that we're honest, that we keep moving forward. He nodded, leaning his head on my shoulder. And in that moment, I knew we were going to be okay. Maybe not perfect, but okay. The summer after David joined our family, everything felt new and raw, like a garden after a storm. There were days when laughter came easy, and days when the air was thick with things unsaid. But we kept showing up for each other, even when it was hard. David started coming by every Sunday for dinner. He'd bring a pie or a loaf of bread from the bakery where he worked, and he always offered to help in the kitchen. Denise and Reggie treated him like a brother, teasing him, sharing old family stories, inviting him into the rituals that had once belonged to just the three of them. Ruth was slower to warm up. She watched him with wary eyes, her trust hard-won and easily lost. But David was patient. He listened to her stories, asked about her life, and never pushed too hard. Slowly, she let him in. One Sunday after dinner, we sat on the porch, the air thick with the scent of honeysuckle and the sound of cicadas. David turned to me, his eyes serious. Do you ever wish you hadn't told the truth? He asked. I thought about it, the question heavy in the air. No, I said finally. The truth is hard, but it's the only thing that lets us heal. Secrets keep us sick. Lies keep us lonely. I'd rather face the pain and come out stronger on the other side. He nodded, looking out at the yard. I'm glad you told me, he said, even if it hurt. I squeezed his hand. Me too, baby, me too. As the months passed, our family found a new rhythm. We celebrated birthdays, holidays, and small victories together. We learned to laugh again, to trust again, to love again. But the past has a way of lingering. Henry tried to come around, tried to make amends. He called, sent letters, even showed up at the house a few times. But the wounds were still fresh, and none of us were ready to let him back in. One evening he showed up unannounced, standing on the porch with a bouquet of flowers and a look of regret in his eyes. I opened the door, arms crossed. What do you want, Henry? He shifted from foot to foot, looking down at the ground. I just wanted to see you, to see the kids, to see David. I shook my head. You made your choices, Henry. You don't get to walk back in like nothing happened. He looked up, pain etched deep in his face. I know, I'm sorry, Ora Mae, for everything. I nodded, my heart heavy. Sorry doesn't fix what you broke, but it's a start. He handed me the flowers, turned and walked away. I watched him go, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. David struggled with his feelings about Henry. He wanted to know his father, to understand him, but he also felt betrayed, angry, lost. We talked about it often, sitting on the porch late into the night. "Do you think I'll ever be able to forgive him?" he asked one evening. I thought about it, choosing my words carefully. Forgiveness isn't about letting someone off the hook. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of their mistakes. You don't have to forget, and you don't have to let him back in. But if you can find it in your heart to forgive, you'll find peace. He nodded silent. "I'll try," he said finally. "That's all you can do, baby, just try." As the year went on, our family grew stronger. We learned to lean on each other, to support each other, to celebrate the good days and survive the bad ones. We started new traditions, Sunday dinners, game nights, family walks in the park. We made room for David, for his mother, for the new branches of our family tree. It wasn't always easy. There were arguments, misunderstandings, moments when the old pain flared up. But we kept coming back to the table, kept choosing each other, kept choosing the truth. And slowly the wounds began to heal. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Denise turned to me. "Ma, do you ever regret any of it? The marriage, the secrets, the pain?" I thought about it, the question settling in my chest. "No," I said softly. "Every choice, every mistake, every heartbreak led us here, to this moment, to this family. I wouldn't trade it for anything." She smiled, tears in her eyes. "Me neither, Ma, me neither." We sat in silence, the kind that feels full, not empty. And I realized that, for the first time in a long time, I was at peace. Fall came, and with it, a sense of closure I hadn't expected. The leaves turned gold and red, the air grew crisp, and our family settled into a new kind of normal. David was part of us now, not just in name but in spirit. He came to every Sunday dinner, brought his mother for Thanksgiving, and even helped Reggie fix the old fence out back. One Saturday, as we raked leaves together, David paused, leaning on his rake. "Do you think it'll ever stop hurting?" he asked, voice low. I looked at him, saw the pain still lingering in his eyes. "I don't know if it ever goes away completely," I said. "But it gets easier. The pain softens. The memories get less sharp. And one day, you realize you're smiling more than you're crying." He nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. "I hope so." I squeezed his shoulder. "You're stronger than you think, baby. You survived the truth. That's more than most people ever do." Henry kept trying to reach out. He sent cards for birthdays, called on holidays, even showed up at church a few times. But the kids kept their distance. They weren't ready to forgive, and I didn't push them. Forgiveness can't be forced. It has to come in its own time. One Sunday after church, Henry caught me in the parking lot. "Ora Mae, can we talk?" I hesitated, then nodded. We sat on a bench under the old oak tree, the leaves falling around us like confetti. "I know I can't fix what I did," he said. "But I want to try. I want to be part of the family again." I looked at him, saw the regret in his eyes. "You can't just walk back in, Henry. You have to earn it. You have to show them you've changed." He nodded, his shoulders slumping. "I'm trying, I really am." I believed him, or at least I wanted to. The holidays were different that year. There was an empty seat at the table, but it didn't feel as heavy as before. We laughed, we ate, we shared stories. David brought a new girlfriend, a sweet girl named Jasmine who fit right in. Denise and Reggie teased him. Ruth watched with a smile, and I felt a warmth in my heart that I hadn't felt in years. After dinner, as we sat around the fire, David stood up. "I just want to say thank you," he said, his voice steady. "For welcoming me, for loving me, for making me feel like I belong. I know it wasn't easy. I know the truth hurt. But I'm grateful for all of you." We clapped, hugged, wiped away tears. In that moment, I knew we were going to be okay. As the year drew to a close, I found myself reflecting on everything we'd been through. The secrets, the lies, the pain, the healing, the forgiveness, the love. I realized that life is messy. Families are messy. But the mess is what makes us real. It's what makes us strong. I looked around at my family, at Denise, Reggie, Ruth, David, Jasmine, and felt a deep sense of gratitude. We had survived the storm. We had found our way back to each other, and we were stronger for it. On New Year's Eve, we gathered on the porch, watching fireworks light up the sky. I raised a glass, my heart full. To truth, I said. To family, to new beginnings. They echoed my words, their voices blending together in the night. And as the clock struck midnight, I knew that we were ready for whatever came next. A new year dawned, and with it, a sense of hope I hadn't felt in a long time. The pain of Henry's betrayal was still there, but it no longer defined me or my family. We had learned to live with the truth, to let it shape us without letting it break us. David called me one morning, his voice lighter than I'd ever heard it. "Mrs. Carter, Ora Mae," he corrected himself. "I just wanted to say thank you for everything, for telling me the truth, for letting me in, for giving me a family." I smiled, warmth blooming in my chest. "You're welcome, baby. You're part of us now, always." He laughed, a sound full of promise. "I'm thinking about going back to school, maybe studying social work. I want to help other kids who grew up like me, kids who never knew where they belonged." I felt tears prick my eyes. "That's beautiful, David. I'm proud of you." He paused, then said, "I'm proud of you too." As spring arrived, our family grew even closer. Denise and Reggie started inviting David to more family events. Ruth and David began meeting for coffee, sharing stories, building a bond that had been missing for too long. Henry kept reaching out, and slowly the kids began to let him in, just a little. They set boundaries, made it clear that trust had to be earned, but they didn't shut him out completely. I watched as forgiveness took root, slow and tentative, but real. One Sunday, after church, Henry joined us for dinner. It was awkward at first, but as the evening wore on, the old rhythms returned. We laughed, we argued, we remembered. For a moment, it almost felt like the family we used to be. After dinner, Henry pulled me aside. "Thank you, Ora Mae, for not giving up on me, for giving me a chance to make things right." I looked at him, saw the man I'd loved and the man who'd hurt me, all wrapped up in one. "I didn't do it for you, Henry. I did it for our children, for David, for myself." He nodded, understanding. "I know, and I'm grateful." As the months passed, I found myself reflecting on everything we'd been through. The secrets, the lies, the pain, the healing, the forgiveness, the love. I realized that life isn't about avoiding pain. It's about facing it, learning from it, and letting it make you stronger. I thought about the day I found that letter in the mailbox, the day my world changed forever. I thought about the nights I spent crying, the days I spent angry, the moments I wanted to give up. And I realized that every tear, every heartbreak, every hard conversation had led me here, to a place of peace, of acceptance, of hope. If you're listening to this, maybe you've been betrayed. Maybe you've uncovered a secret that shattered your world. Maybe you're struggling to forgive, to move forward, to find your way back to yourself. Let me tell you, you're not alone. We all have stories we wish we could rewrite. We all have moments we wish we could take back. But the only way forward is through the pain, through the truth, through the hard work of healing. And on the other side, there's hope, there's love. There's a new kind of family, built not on secrets, but on honesty and grace. So if you're sitting in the dark, wondering if you'll ever feel whole again, know this: you will. It might take time, it might take tears, but you will. And when you do, you'll look back and see that every broken piece was just making room for something stronger. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for letting me share my truth. If this touched your heart, if you saw yourself in these words, I hope you'll share your own story in the comments. Let's build a community where no one has to heal alone. If you haven't already, tap the like button and subscribe to Tales of Ora Mae for more true stories of love, loss, and the lessons that make us who we are. You can support this journey with a super thanks, or just by sharing this video with someone who needs to hear it. Sending love your way. See you in the next story. And remember, the truth might hurt, but it also sets you free.